Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's episode. Nostalgic nights and deeper thoughts. I would like to speak about a very important quality for a human being to attain, and it is contentment beyond the projections and movements of their subjective realm and the language simulation. There are many environments that consciousness will find itself. There will be times in those environments where the inner reality, the subjective realm, will be either gentle, quiet, or it will be animate and moving. Now, whenever it comes to trying to generalize a map of how behind one's eyes experience moves, it becomes a challenge. I have at least noticed that all human beings, in some sense, have a relationship with the language that is their world. What that means is, especially people who are bilingual may understand this, that there are many ways that the same concept could be communicated, and that if the language is not adopted, if one cannot speak the language, they do not get access to the imagery that those words and sounds evoke. In my experience, I'll tell you something. I mean, every person's intelligence is different. But I could say this, that I'll share this. I'll share a personal experience I had. When I was 7 years old, from Iran, my family comes to Canada. In Canada, I remember it was I think it was grade one. And, oh no. Sorry, guys. There's a problem with the memory of my laptop, so I feel there might have been a disconnect. Hopefully, things should be back to normal now. I think they are. Okay. Maybe it was never off, but at least for a second there was an error here. Anyways, guys, I'll get back to the talk. Pretty much what I'm saying is there needs to be a sensitivity to one's relationship with the language that is becoming their world. It is very easy to have someone come and speak about objective phenomena. What do we use to communicate about objective phenomena? We use language. We use language, and in some sense we name the phenomenology in our environment to access it and have a relationship with it. Now, I thought this interesting. We're using language to understand as a tool to comprehend objectivity, but then I thought, what kind of language do I need to know intuitively to understand the subjective realm? You see, it's very easy. I tell you, find your objective realm, just touch the nearest object. But finding the subjective realm, really, it's not a tangible experience. It's the simplicity of the presence of your attention. The thing is that I feel every child on this earth, the yearning, the sort of, now nostalgia may not be the perfect word, but I'm going to tell you why I chose that. To talk about language is paradoxical or should I say self-reflective. There is a blessing that humanity has that, in some sense, our species has that many other forms of intelligence, let's say, perhaps do not have. And that is that our life has managed to translate the human life in 2020 to something that starts, there is a start, middle, and end. And because the end is unknown, free will can make decisions. If you're ending, imagine every child that was born, the moment they were born, they also attained the memory of how they will die, for example. Like, I'm being playful here, but what I'm saying is, like, imagine knowing how this world is going to finally turn your eyes. Many wait for a finale. The afterlife is like the finale. You've been watching the TV show, TV series, and you're getting to the finale, and eventually you have to step beyond the rooms of design that you have dwelled in. You have to live beyond the thoughts inhabited by your attention. Now it's easy to see how we're living in a house, but is it as easy to see all the thoughts you're basking in, all the thoughts that are in different colored lights behind your eyes? What I mean by that is you can imagine different thoughts being different colors. You know, I'm just being playful. Thought is not something of an image, but it's presence oriented. That's why I say one subtler planes. Before kind of finding a way to speak about it in regards to the objective realm and the subjective realm, I used to say subtler planes of abstraction and imagination. Thought cannot be held, but its presence is how attention is here. There are certain as components to this is actually phenomenal to know. A human being right now, let's say, let's put in a neutral example. Let's say person A notices there's person B, notices there's person C. Person A notices that person A has an objective realm and a subjective realm. Person A looks at person B and sees person B also has an objective and subjective realm. And person C looks at the other two and sees that they also have. So let me say it like this. Person A looks at both of them and sees himself, sees the designs familiar to his consciousness. You know? This is why if the era of advanced communication is truly honored, you won't understand how many hidden ways the minds of people will communicate once there is a strangely internal, non-judgmental, how do I say it? What's the word I'm looking for? Non-judgmental contentment. There we go. You see, guys, it's really, what is it? The human being can pay attention to objective phenomena, and I feel many people don't notice it, but the being can also pay attention to subjective phenomena. And when I say subjective phenomena, this doesn't mean the TV show, like let's say you watch a TV show, it doesn't mean that. It means how that translates into your moment of being. You know, they told me, I remember when I was when I was younger, my parents told me it's important to recycle. You know, and I thought about it, I'm like, existence is recycling itself all the time. Do you know the cycles are repeating all the time? And you might not believe it, but a person can have a relationship with themselves where it's based on Oh, this is incredible. Oh man, I wish I had a whiteboard. I think I gotta start creating. Guys, I think I should create a channel and just have a whiteboard on there. I have one, like, I just, I think this is a good idea. Anyway, I guess what I'm trying to say is that the human being has become conscious of matter and has become responsible of matter. The human being has become conscious of thought but has not become responsible for thought yet. And when you're not responsible, just like it's like, many people take care of their bodies, but it fascinates me, not many people take care of their minds. That means the mind is something that you gotta keep pulling the string to see how far it can go. Really, the human intelligence is based on its effort. We see in many narratives, in many storylines throughout history, many stories, that pretty much the human being, his redemptive moment was when his effort went to the max. There's something about being a small creature in a big universe that your greatest effort will automatically be felt enough by your inner realm, by your subjective self. What do I mean by that? That means imagine a meteor is hitting a version of Earth, a parallel reality of Earth. And in this parallel reality, the last moment before this meteor hits, every living person forgets history, forgets the mysteries of the world. In the last moment of conscious wakefulness in the human form, I don't know what it is, but when you leave a loved one, like just think about like lovers you have left in this world. There's a strange coldness. That means like there's an intensity. There's an intensity of things coming and going, and then suddenly things no longer coming in the same way. I sometimes ask myself, like, a person ponders about their life often, if they're looking at things in this world. And really, everything is to some degree, believe it or not, people may say it's not, but everyone is looking for the new. The new in the internal realms can only come when the conscious attention moves. So you see, there's a way you can move without your body moving. And something funny, behind the eyes of the human being, it's not that it's a lawless world, it's a world where laws have less strict behavior. To be honest, for me, a lot of like what existence is we are not living properly as human beings. We're not truly acknowledging the full intelligence that we are. And because we're not doing that, we're finding ourselves in a boredom. What does that mean? That means you are a great inventor and you don't know it yet. And you have the tools with you. all the time. Imagine you're kind of like the human existence is like advanced biological technology now can not only be conscious of itself but of what it creates. You see, there's two crucial things that human beings are aware of. You see, many animals, sorry, not humans, let me say it like this, many species of animals, they say the main difference between the human being and the animal is that the animal is not conscious of its mortality. That squirrel moving on the tree branches like a neuron has no idea, has no, perhaps we can say, doesn't even fathom or conceptualize it. And the animal is defined by its instincts, and the instincts are certain urges. Because we have a biological body, even if you're a person who you say you're preferenceless, there will come a moment in your life where you see the animal body. I call it the biological program. I say the biological program. We our eyes have awakened in it. Do you know? I don't feel. I feel the human body is born, but the mind doesn't. Is not born. The mind awakens into conscious mobility. That means when you really look at the edge of your consciousness, when you really try to wonder about what's your earliest memory, what's the earliest thing you remember as a human being, you know, you'll reach a point where you'll see you don't remember until there was enough of a story lived. Consciousness awakens. Do you know? And really, what it is at first, I was kind of slightly, I was like, life, what is this? I have to wake up and sleep and wake up and sleep endlessly? Like, what is this? Like, make up your mind, nature. And then I realized it's an advantage because really the things you can't change are like enemies that you have to become friends with. There are unfamiliar forces that have to be familiarized. Now, I'm not even though I give these talks very openly, mainly because I'm in my own private space giving these talks. But like for example, for me, I think it's the depth of the human vision that dictates its fluency in its civilization, its movement. Sorry, guys, about the additional noises, but meaning before no meaning. If we choose to see no meaning from the beginning of life, there could be meaning and we could miss out on it. If we choose to think that we are purely material beings, we may never invent all the technologies towards something else, the immaterial. Really, the law of opposites is kind of very in nature. I had this vision, of course, my youth, I was born in 1991, and you could kind of guess like I was born at the beginning when how can I tell you, like the new Sega came out, I was probably like 4. But anyways, guys, whatever. I'm just trying to say that I've noticed certain patterns and I've noticed cultural movement, and there was a sort of divine pattern in nature where, as human consciousness evolves, various parallel realities of the same pattern become actualized. So, what does that mean? That means like I was raised, like you could say, with an Iranian kind of background and moral code and kind of ethics of consideration. But I could tell you this, like, for example, in Western cultures, the freedom of identity to have to adjust to biology is less. So what I mean by that is that identity is of course the mind, the subjective phenomena we say is abstract. All our lives are abstract. Reality is occurring in abstraction. It's like as much as the brain is experiencing projecting a mind, there is a mind receiving the whole phenomenology of the moment. So it's kind of like the brain. allows for an awareness to arise, but that awareness allows within itself various projections of self to arise. That means, do you know some people who believe in past lives, and I'm not going to talk about future lives. I mean, I'll talk about it in another episode. But like those people who believe in past life and incarnation, do you know sometimes it has nothing to do. It's like their mind has reached a sort of edge where it can animate endless stories. Do you know our minds can move with certain cycles and rhythms? And I can't tell you the most important thing in this life that you only get one chance at. And this is pretty much the choice. You either live through your own eyes or you live through the eyes of others. You either live through your own eyes or you live through the eyes of others. This is so crucial to understand this, because unless you live through your own eyes, you cannot honor the self. You know, all languages, we say they are sound, at least speech. The communication, the use of language is speech, for example, right? So speech is sound ultimately. So regardless of what kind of language a person speaks, when they speak, sound generates. Sorry, guys. Should have probably set up some hot tea before I started to talk about it. All I have is cold lemonade. Like actually cold lemonade, guys. But anyways. I'm just trying to say that it's all sound, yet different languages are different universes. And it's kind of like the same relationship a multiverse can have with various universes in it. There are certain scientific theories that think of the multiverse, for example, you know? That it's like, whoa, maybe we're not, our whole cosmos is not just one room, it's one room in an unfathomable house. Living through your eyes is the opportunity of a lifetime. Winning doesn't happen ever completely. No one wins anything 100% ever. Okay? Even if they win, nothing new can enter one space of consciousness without shifting various stuff. Like sometimes knowledge for me is just the kind of furniture that's in the room of the mind that day. Do you know, true knowledge is actually unfathomable. The true philosophers and the yogis knew it. They were staring at truth that was no longer a concept of truth. That means I tell you, all right, imagine you heard every truth there was out there, every subjective truth. Now, what is beyond all subjective truth? And you see, we suddenly use the observer dynamic. So you can say what is fueling evolution, biological evolution, is subjective observance. It's subjective selfhood and the origination of this. Do you know, I even went so far sometimes in thinking that what if space is alive? I remember that was one of those I think it took me like 2 years. That idea was so fascinating for me. It's like for 2 years, I was wondering if space could see without a body, you know? And so I wondered, what are the parameters of consciousness? That means if I have a free will, does this free will have an ability to be? But I see only in my inner realms I could move my thoughts. What that means is, like, I'm holding this lemonade cup in my hand. At the same time, I can close my eyes and envision four more just hovering in the air. Now, that four more cups that are hovering in the air. Sorry, guys. These. I feel my coughs are too loud for the gentle ears of the listeners. But I apologize. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is, like, that subjective projection has some density of. It's just behind our eyes we are God. In front of it we can never be. In front of our eyes, the technologies that we require to survive in are dualistic. The inner technologies must be understood non-dualistically. Now that's where, like, what I'm telling you is, the yogis should not be in the mountains preaching. They should be in the organizations, in the most corrupt organizations. We should have random Zen monks just walking the hallways, you know. Anybody who gets stressed in the company can come and have a conversation with this person. I'm just trying to suggest that the observation of reality is an oscillation of a moment of attention appearing to itself as void or singular or multidimensional. Civilization and all philosophies, they oscillate between the singular dimension and the dualistic dimension. Beyond the dualistic dimension, I would say infinitude and the infinity symbol and geometry are the higher dimensions. That means if you wonder what is the technology beyond the language that we're using, imagine human beings are using a system of language, a precise kind of precision artwork. To be honest, language is how art is kind of moving behind your eyes. I don't know how to say it. There's some movements that it's the free will that moves, and there's some things that the free will doesn't move. And all those people who ever went towards some sort of unknown higher dimensional ability, let me tell you, there is something that after some, the young soul wants to get enlightened. The old soul is wondering why the light is here. Two total differences, you know? Now, granted, we have to live in civilization, you know, so we can't just feel like minds all day. But there has to be a balance, but it's evocation, it's interest. It's like sometimes when a person observes something for too long, they feel detached in the moment. When they're an observer too long, they feel detached. This is something that many teachers and educational systems don't understand. Students are like ears, they're like minds, listening to a voice. Now, as this voice arises, as the voice enters their ears, their minds are give a counter simultaneous response. That means, believe it or not, every teacher that has spoken, every student that has been listening subconsciously has wondered about the opposite. They have been distracted by the polar opposite. Let me tell you why. Because in order to understand, you have to let something else move in the moment. In order to understand something, you have to be the observer. You have to play as the black chess pieces. Do you know what I mean? So what that means is you're not taking the first move. Certain moments where I kind of scope my moment, what that means is like imagine like I remember this is like every time I go to an airport of a country I haven't been, that airport feels like there's a moment where I just, like, how can I say it, you feel how your presence is content with the moment or not. And anyways, let's go on a bit astray. Life, it appears as a simulation, a game you have to play. Now, the advice the sages have said is play the game. Do you know? Whether it's a game of renunciation or it's a game of desire, they're saying just play the game. What I mean by play the game, that means the ultimate kind of archetype of the yogi is a non-dual being. That means you can say yoga is actually a very unique kind of tradition because it was human dissolution, subjective dissolution through experience. That means as the dimensions of your experience became clear to you, the dimensions of your, how can I tell you, like your existence open up. That means think of it this way, your mind is like how open your eyes are in this world. And you can choose to really open the eyes of the mind. And the only way it can happen is only through the strength of your honest free will. I'm not saying honesty because it's like ethics is kind of shackling you to a value. I'm saying honesty is access to the truth. That means in the moment, how do you see the self that you are being? Any society where authenticity is denied or not seen as the greatest action of survival, uh, that society moves away from genius. You see, there's one view, competition, the competitive mindset. Okay, most people think they have to survive competitively. Let's say, you know, they have to push against the ways the world pushes them. They have to push back. But I'm saying there is a way to live this life where it's a symbiosis, it's a communion. It's literally like that bird living on the head of a buffalo. Like there's some birds that like literally they the bird feeds on, like, I don't know, the head of the buffalo, whatever. Like there's some there's some like something like that, right? And that's a symbiosis of two different life forms. That's like a bird, a totally different creature, in some sense, coming and living with the buffalo, and both of them accepting each other's part in the environment. Now, your mind is in a symbiosis with the universal sector, and the universal sector has how can I tell you, has a voice. So just like, imagine a military general can come to like his troops and say like, get ready, like something, or he shouts at ease and they all kind of put away their salutes, you know. Similarly, your mind, guys, I kind of solved the riddle of why they say the mind is a lousy master but a great servant. And how is it possible to master the mind if you must serve before you command, you must serve it first. So how do you in some sense master a mind? By serving your mind. And you start from a simple freedom. The thoughts are here, but I can't find the right words for them. Maybe there's no words to find for them. I don't know. Like, here's the thing. I'm just trying to suggest that ultimately the greatest wisdom and approach, at least I have realized, is that you acknowledge your experiential being and your attention. Okay, and then you realize your attention is existing objectively through a certain biological process, but it's existing subjectively in accordance to your own absorption of subjective patterns. That means it's kind of strange. To be honest, nobody can teach you anything ever. Only when the gates of your free will is open. Only when you go towards something, life is like, okay, the percentage of deservance is increasing. By the way, guys, these talks are kind of like a conversation I'm having with the world, so anybody can feel free to comment and add suggestions or whatever in the comment section. So I want to say, feel free to engage. Really, attention pilots through the day through various fields of its own emergence. I can say that it's strange, if we take the video game metaphor a bit further, like you can pause the game and come back to it. And really, when we sleep and we wake up, it feels like that. Of course, the biological body has rested and the energy levels bring forth a new psychology as well. That means the healthier you are, actually, the more elegantly you feel the winds of the world, the winds of evolution. So, what I'm kind of saying is, we are living in a box of our own will. And true knowledge only begins when you step out of your bunker of belief, because the experiential yearning to know is more real than just basking in ideological comfort. A contentment beyond language could mean many things. It could mean that the species may find less use of speech and more its actions change. That means, imagine right now, due to social media and technology, a lot of communication is happening. So what it is it's as if we didn't have something before. Now we have it, because we have it, and it's the first time. It's There's an extreme. Sometimes it's like, whether you like it or not, whoever is first in the room is the rebel. you know the trust that nature brings is kind of like realizing, ultimately, if we are natural beings, it's as if we are, like, imagine the cells, like the blood cells in one of your veins, suddenly had a philosophical conversation about the nature of the world. Regardless of their conclusion, they will never know why, for example, the person goes to work. There are certain dimensions. It's like the world, the manifest universe, observable material universe, is like a tree where it has roots in unknown dimensions that we cannot see and we cannot fathom. And even if we fathom, it's like, okay, let's say we found a way to measure infinity. What do we do with the result? The purpose of life has to be a balance between an experiential view and an existential view. There's a story, which is a Sufi story, and there's this young alchemist, and he's at this shoemaker's place. When I say young, like some guy in his, like, I don't know, like late 20s or something. And so this guy's at this shoemaker's place, and the shoemaker is this old man who, his hand is shaking, and he's very poor and whatnot, and he's like making this kid's shoe, like fixing this kid's shoe. Sorry, guys, to continue. Here's the thing. This alchemist is seeing his shoe be made, and alchemists at the time, they had something called, like, the philosopher's elixirs. I don't know. I don't know. Like, they had some sort of ability to turn lead into gold. Now, like normal metals into gold. By the way, imagine this story's happening 700 years ago, something like that. Like, anyways, so the alchemist is there, this shoemaker, this old guy, who the alchemist is like, man, this guy's suffering. And he goes up to that person and he pours something on the anvil of the guy and it turns into gold. And the old guy's like, before he says, hey kid, here's your shoe, like, he sees the things turned gold and he looks at the kid and he gets angry. And the kid, the alchemist, is like, this man's gonna feel like I just gave him a lottery ticket, you know? The old man says, turn it back. Who told you to turn this into gold? Turn it back, kid. And the alchemist gets shocked and he says, old man, don't be foolish. First of all, you can sell that and be rich. And the second thing is, I don't have like, my technology has evolved to a point where I can only turn this into gold. I can't turn it back. And the old man does something that changes the life of this alchemist. And the old man touches the same anvil, and that anvil turns back into like the normal steel it was. And this alchemist freaks out because he sees there are beings, that there's a potential, there's an ability that surpasses whatever history is offering. The alchemist realizes the world can move in ways unfathomable yet. Some people feel The world is a story. This story is animated by one's will. Even though we, for example, through the efforts of Galileo and Copernicus, we reached a point where we got over our ignorance of thinking we're the center of the universe. Humanity realized he's not the center of the universe, but he thought he was. Now, it is true, everybody acknowledges the earth is not the center of the universe, but we act as if our attention is the center of our lives. So what it is the efforts to go beyond your own expectations. The true art of exploration, of vision. Some say, or let me say it like this, some may say, I don't know, guys. I'm thinking like maybe I should take a different approach to this. So I'm thinking about like if my great grandchild opened its eyes in the world, what kind of world would it see? I wondered about, it's as if I saw my past, I saw what was in the present moment, and then I wondered about the future. You know what I kind of saw? I saw what I could not see. I saw the edge of the sensory perception. And the edge of it is not dualistic. And we are not the center of our lives. When the human being realizes that the species is, it's like, I don't know, like this, the civilization is as advanced as its vision is. And vision can only become advanced through self-awareness, and self-awareness leads you into contemplating the self while simultaneously realizing all of it is occurring in awareness. So that ultimate presence of awareness is really what we are, what at least the whole moment is. It's a presence. That means it's here. It's here before we name, define, do whatever. Before language, there was something here. Before conception, there was something here. Before every idea lingering in the minds of people, all the words that people are speaking, there was a time where it was just pure silence and the inner realms were not open to the outer realms. To be honest, my intention with this talk was to just contemplate the depth of the night. Every moment has a depth. Every moment has a sort of emergence pattern. Language can be used in different ways. The mind of the person can first see language and structure, then allow movement, or it can move, then allow structure to arise. Based on how you move in this world, karma occurs. Karma is kind of like the effect to everything that you cause on this planet. Now, this effect, we can say there are invisible effects, certain things you'll never know that occurred because of you. And it has, in some sense, kind of known effects as well. But in regards to the cause surpasses both the known and the unknown. So the roots of the tree surpass a dualistic interpretation of the moment. To be honest, to give a purpose to the subjective realm beyond the objective framework could be heavy. But I think I can see it very clearly now that ultimately, guys, it's like a creature opens its eyes, it realizes as it moves externally, it's an individual phenomena. The more still and silent is, before it's a phenomena, every phenomena is just being. So you see, we human beings, we are being human. There's a human dimension that's design oriented, and the biological program and all the other subjective programs. And then there is a part that's just the pure being. That means can you imagine somebody tells you, imagine your worst self. Now the guy's like, all right, I'm imagining my worst self. The guy says, imagine what your worst self standing here, and the guy's like, okay, I imagine my worst self standing here. Then he says, imagine your best self standing on the other side of you, and your best self is standing on the other side. Now the guy says, imagine a self that never made a mistake. Imagine the unmistaken self. Imagine the self before the self. Do you see where we're heading? We're heading to the edge of the language threshold. Language is that's why I say the linguistic simulation, because it has edges, and beyond it, it's like it's no longer defined based on kind of, you can say, code or phenomenological pattern. Like how the phenomena is occurring, and how is it occurring to the person. We must advance through an efficiency of vision that doesn't avoid nature. When one really wonders about meaning, meaning can arise in any moment, and it can go away in any moment. Therefore, what is true meaning? It's to wonder why you're evolving. It's like if the caterpillar asked, why am I a caterpillar? And then it's like, a wise caterpillar was like, yo, man, relax. A day will come. A day will come where everything you believed will, as Sri Ramana Maharshi very elegantly says, he says, all that you have learned will be forgotten. There will come a day where it's like you're just left as the raw experiencer. And to be aware of it while you're animate really makes you just grateful for just how the attention is free. Because really the purpose of survival is to actually get a chance to discover the potential of your mind. And most people, look at how society is designed. Like many societies on this planet are designed. What they're doing is they're trying to they're trying to make how can I tell you? It's like people are all running towards something that's like, imagine somebody puts imagine here, I'll create a story out of this right now. Imagine they made this great statue, and this great statue became something that everybody, at the moment they looked at it, they couldn't stop looking at it. Every day they had to be there. The statue had to be in their line of sight. Eventually there would come a time where the people in that kind of story setting have to decide, should I remain here or should I move beyond? Now, to move beyond means something in life has to be so important for you to do it. That importance cannot arise if you have not found an honest world to live in. And when I say honest, it doesn't necessarily mean honest externally. I'm not trying to challenge like Plato's noble lie, but I'm just saying like honesty to self. Think of it this way: there's so much work that the civilization has to do that it's like, have you ever felt ashamed of your depression? Oh man, this was like totally a summer in Italy. I experienced a very depressing summer in Italy. But it was bad though overall. Life is where our attention goes. And I think attention is the only thing faster than the speed of the speed of light, because it's instantaneous. Just like how a word awakens into the ears of the audience. Similarly, it's like we as creatures, as personifications of all the data we've processed, it's like we're living in many worlds in one, and then we're analyzing our happiness based on just thinking we're in one kind of world. So do you see there's a fragmentation of psyche in order to for the modern Homo sapien to endure through its natural economical also survival. So what that means is there's certain games of society that the human being has to eventually go and play. Like it has to go get involved with the environment. But there's also it's kind of like in a room where it's too loud and noisy, you cannot try to say something. So what it is it's the volume knob that has the power. So that volume knob is a sort of observance of objective and subjective phenomena simultaneously. I'm trying to say like life is in a strange way sometimes like a blank piece of paper, write whatever you like on it, but sometimes it's as if it's a book that's been written and it's ancient. Imagine every atom of your being having a story to tell. It's kind of like souls tunneling through souls, meaning that it's kind of like a cosmic it's a cosmic spiral. I think our consciousness is spiraling. Dimensions there, it's like, it's not like a light beam. There's a sort of spiral at work, a spiral like movement. And a spiral is different. A circle doesn't experience greater planes of dimensions, but a spiral can endlessly experience expansion in many dimensions. So anyways, guys, I feel I've shared enough. One last thing to say about contentment beyond language. Nobody has your eyes as a being, and there is a freedom in that. You have to kind of think of it this way, that when life becomes important, all the confusion instantly moves aside. When the moment of your being becomes important, the confusion, it's like, all the clouds suddenly move away. When life doesn't become important because of some sort of emotion or some sort of relationship with the external reality, it's like we find the freedom beyond the mask of the subjective archetype we embody in the moment. In other words, we are free before we were free, but that freedom before we were free cannot be comprehended by the freedom now. So it's like a field of intelligence, and then it experiences itself as a particle, then it experiences itself as a field, then a particle, and it's like this kind of like back and forth kind of oscillation of oceans of intelligence and raindrops of intelligence falling into the ocean. So anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. And nostalgia, I think it's going to be a very profound, it's going to give, how can I tell you that, like, inefficiency of civilization is going to create countercultural kind of atmospheres where the person is distant from their truth, but their endurance makes them realize they can create a new their truth. And how would I say it? Their subjective reality is can be observed. Something like that. I don't know how to say it. It's like, imagine we have one cube, and this is the body, and then that cube is inside this bigger cube, let's call that the mind, and then that cube is inside something bigger, let's call that the unknown X variable, or the soul. So what I mean by that is, like, that soul means ultimately any sort of movement in a changing world will lead to an unknown place. So what it is it's our attention that keeps our consciousness. That's why I say it's like there's no longer, like, I don't, even though I'm familiar with meditation, but the imagery I use is that we should be pilots of our intelligence, of our minds. We should pilot our minds towards the advancement of our civilization. And the reason I use the pilot metaphor, because it is for me the most most divine metaphor, for me at least. Because the pilot is navigating a plane, and the mind moves the plane of existence for the being. And so it's like piloting your attention pre-thought. Realizing there's many, it's like your DNA is like the gift of your ancestors. Now, It's up to your attention in the moment how far see from what you see. Or as Henry David Thoreau says, it's not what you're looking at that matters, it's what you see. And Rabindranath Tagore also, he says you cannot cross the sea by merely staring at it. So anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in, and I hope this episode was helpful. Much blessings and namaste.